Three elderly brothers, 96, 94, and 92, still live together in the old family house. One evening, the 96-year-old runs a bath. He puts one foot in and freezes. "Hey!" he shouts down the stairs. "Was I getting in or out of the tub?" The 94-year-old calls back. "No idea. I'll come check." Halfway up the stairs, he stops and yells, "Wait! Was I going up or coming down?" The youngest, 92, is sitting in the kitchen, sipping coffee and shaking his head. "Man, I hope I never get that forgetful," he mutters. He knocks on the table for good luck. Then he stands up, walks to the door, and says, "I'll be right there as soon as I see who's knocking." An elderly gentleman had just picked up his shiny new Corvette convertible. Feeling like a teenager again, he decided to test what the car could do. As soon as he hit the highway, he pressed the gas, 80 miles per hour, then 90, the wind rushing through the few silver strands left on his head. He was loving it, but in his rearview mirror, red and blue lights lit up. A state trooper was hot on his tail. Instead of slowing down, he panicked and hit the gas even harder. 100, then 110, 120 miles per hour. Suddenly, reality set in. "What am I doing? I'm a grandfather, not a getaway driver." He eased off the pedal and pulled over. The trooper approached, shaking his head, and said, "Sir, my shift ends in half an hour, and it's Friday. If you can give me one reason, just one that I've never heard before for why you were speeding, I'll let you off with a warning." The old man chuckled and said, "Well, officer, years ago my wife ran away with a state trooper. I thought you were bringing her back." The trooper paused and then burst out laughing. "Have a great day, sir. Drive safe." "Doctor, so what are you holding there?" Patient, grinning. "My book took me 5 years to write it, 600 pages. Doctor, amazing. What's it about?" Patient. "Well, page 1. A brave knight saddles his donkey and begins his journey to the mountains." Doctor. "And the last page?" Patient. "He reaches the mountains and takes a nap." Doctor. "Okay. And the remaining 598 pages?" Patient clears throat proudly. "Clap, clap, clap, clappity, clap, 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 clap." Doctor confused. "What is that supposed to be?" Patient, dead serious. "The sound of the donkey walking, every single step." Doctor, blinking. "But why so many pages?" Patient, "Realism. We don't skip the journey around here." Doctor, "And who's going to read this masterpiece?" Patient, smiling proudly. "Oh, I'll upload it on YouTube. People love long stories with zero plot. Some are listening it right now and don't even know how to stop." Bob stepped into his manager's office and said confidently, "Sir, I've been with this company for over a decade. I've always shown up, worked hard, and stayed loyal. I think it's time we discuss a raise." The manager raised an eyebrow. "A raise? Bob, you know business has been slow lately. This might not be the right moment." Bob smiled politely. "I understand that, but I thought you should know there are 4 companies chasing after me, and I wanted to talk to you first." Now the manager sat up straighter. "Well, in that case, I don't want to lose a good employee. I'll offer you a 10% raise and an extra week of vacation. How's that sound?" Bob beamed. "That sounds great. I really appreciate it." Just as he was walking out, the manager asked, "Wait, who exactly are these 4 companies after you?" Bob turned around with a grin. "The electric company, the gas company, the water company, and the mortgage lender." Why little Johnny was late to school. "Again. Late again, Johnny." Miss Patterson sighed, arms folded. Johnny just grinned. "It isn't my fault this time, ma'am. You have to blame my daddy. He sleeps in the nude." Miss Patterson, who had taught for decades and heard every excuse under the sun, raised an eyebrow. Still, curiosity won. "All right, Johnny, explain." "Well, ma'am," Johnny began, "we got a sly old fox out by our chicken coop. Nasty critter's been stealing hens all week. Last night, Daddy heard something out there and jumped out of bed grabbing his shotgun. Now, Daddy doesn't sleep in nothing, not a stitch. He told us kids to stay put and army crawled his way to the coop like some kind of ninja." Johnny paused for dramatic effect. "He aimed his shotgun through the coop window, waiting real quiet. Then Rip, that's our hound, snuck up behind him and right as Daddy was getting ready to fire, Johnny leaned in close, eyes wide. Rip stuck his cold nose right where no dog should ever be sticking it, Miss Patterson gasped. Daddy screamed like a banshee, fired both barrels straight into the air, and scared every hen we got clean out of their feathers. So yeah, Johnny finished proudly. We've been chasing down bald chickens since 3 a.m. The housemaid politely approached her madam and said, "Ma'am, I think I deserve a raise." The madam crossed her arms and replied, "All right, give me 3 good reasons why I should increase your salary." The maid smiled and said, "First, I cook better than you." Madam raised an eyebrow. "Who told you that?" "Your husband did," replied the maid. Madam gritted her teeth. "Okay, what's the second reason?" "I iron clothes better than you." "And who told you that?" "Your husband, again." Now, visibly tense, the madam said, "All right, what's the third reason?" The maid hesitated, then said, "I'm also better than you in bed." The madam gasped, furious, and grabbed a broom. "What? Did my husband tell you that too?" The maid quickly waved her hands and said, No, the driver did." Suddenly the madam went pale and whispered, "Keep your voice down, I'll double your salary." An elderly lady walked into the vet's clinic holding a droopy duck in her arms. She gently placed it on the exam table and looked up at the veterinarian with teary eyes. The vet listened to the bird's chest with his stethoscope, frowned slightly, and said, "I'm afraid your duck, Daisy, has passed away." The woman gasped. "Are you sure? Isn't there something else you can do? Maybe she's just in shock." The vet gave a patient sigh and said, "All right, let's double check." He stepped out of the room and returned with a large black Labrador. The dog jumped up, sniffed the duck thoroughly, then turned to the vet and slowly shook his head. Next, the vet brought in a tabby cat. The cat leapt onto the table, took a good sniff of the duck, let out a soft meow, and casually walked away with no interest. The vet turned to the woman and said, "I'm sorry, but Daisy is definitely gone." He tapped some keys on his computer and printed out a bill. Handing it to the woman, she blinked at the total. $180? Just to tell me my duck is dead? The vet shrugged. "If you'd taken my word for it, it would have only been $30, but with the lab report and the CAT scan." A woman from Chicago was driving alone through the wide-open desert in Arizona when her car suddenly broke down. No cell service, no traffic, just silence and sand for miles. Just as panic started to creep in, a Native American man appeared on horseback. "Need a ride into town?" he asked calmly. Grateful, she climbed up behind him, and they began the journey through the desert. The ride was peaceful, except for one strange thing. Every few minutes, the man would suddenly shout, "Yay-haw!" His voice bounced off the canyon walls like thunder. The woman said nothing, unsure what to make of it. Eventually, they reached a small town. The man let out one last joyful yell and trotted off. She headed straight to a nearby mechanic to get help with her car. The mechanic looked up and asked, "Everything all right, miss?" "Yes," she said, "but I'm a little confused. The man who gave me a ride kept yelling, 'Yah-haw,' the whole time. Any idea why?" The mechanic grinned and asked, "Well, what were you holding on to during the ride?" She replied, "Just the horn on the saddle so I wouldn't fall." He burst out laughing. "Lady, that man wasn't using a saddle." A young couple had just gotten married, and they spent their wedding night doing what most newlyweds do, celebrating their love, again and again, all night long. The next morning, the husband hopped in the shower while his new bride relaxed in bed. When he finished, he realized he had forgotten to grab a towel. "Sweetheart," he called out, "can you bring me a towel, please?" She walked over to the bathroom with the towel in hand. When he opened the door to take it, there he stood, dripping wet and completely exposed. Her eyes widened as she glanced down, then back up, then back down, and stopped halfway. With a puzzled look, she pointed and asked, "Wait, what's that?" He hesitated, slightly embarrassed, and replied, "That's what we had so much fun with last night." She paused, looked even more confused, and asked innocently, "Oh, is that all that's left?" A distinguished Englishman, a longtime member of a prestigious London gentlemen's club, was asked to give a lecture to the members. "Splendid," he said. "What should I talk about?" His friend leaned in and whispered, "Talk about sex, old chap. It always keeps the room awake." So that night, the gentleman delivered a 2-hour talk on the subject, witty, detailed, and wildly entertaining. The members applauded him like he'd just won Wimbledon. Later at home, his curious wife asked, "So, what did you lecture about at the club tonight, darling?" Not wanting to confess he'd just discussed bedroom antics in vivid detail, he replied smoothly, "Ah, sailing, my dear. Gave a little talk on sailing." She raised an eyebrow but said nothing. A few days later, while shopping in town, she bumped into one of her husband's clubmates. He smiled warmly and said, "Your husband gave an absolutely fascinating talk the other night. Quite the expert, I must say." The wife blinked. "Really? That's odd. He's only done it twice. And the first time he got seasick, and the second time his hat flew off in the wind." Jack, a handsome man, walked into a sports bar around 9:58 p.m. He sat down next to this blonde at the bar and stared up at the TV as the 10 o'clock news came on. The news crew was covering a story of a man on a ledge of a large building preparing to jump. The blonde looked at Jack and said, "Do you think he'll jump?" Jack says, "You know what? I bet he will." The blonde replied, "Well, I bet he won't." Jack placed $30 on the bar and said, "You're on." Just as the blonde placed her money on the bar, the guy did a swan dive off of the building, falling to his death. The blonde was very upset and handed her $30 to Jack, saying, "Fair's fair, here's your money." Jack replied, "I can't take your money. I saw this earlier on the 5 o'clock news and knew he would jump." The blonde replies, "I did too, but I didn't think he'd do it again." Jack took the money. An 80-year-old man goes in for a checkup. The doctor says, "George, you're in amazing shape for your age. How's your mind, your spirit? You at peace with the big guy upstairs?" George smiles and says, "Doc, me and God, we're tight. He even looks out for me at night. I can barely see. But when I get up to go to the bathroom, poof, the light comes on, and when I'm done, poof, the light goes off every time. God's got my back." The doctor is stunned. "That's incredible." Later, just to follow up, the doctor calls George's wife. "Ethel," he says, "George is doing great, but I have to ask. He says God turns the bathroom light on and off for him at night. Is that really true?" There's a pause. Then Ethel shrieks, "Oh no! He's peeing in the fridge again." A man was lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to oxygen, recovering from surgery. A young student nurse came in to give him a partial sponge bath. Through the mask, he mumbled, "Nurse, are my testicles black?" The nurse froze, clearly flustered. "Sir, I'm only assigned to clean your upper body and feet," she said softly. But the man insisted again, "Please, can you check? Are my testicles black?" Worried his anxiety might affect his recovery, she hesitated but decided to help. Gently, she pulled back the covers, lifted his gown, and carefully examined everything. After a thorough check, she said kindly, "Sir, everything looks perfectly normal. No signs of anything wrong." The man slowly lifted his oxygen mask, gave a weak grin, and said, "Thanks. But I was just asking, are my test results back? Oops." A young man burst into the confessional in tears. "Forgive me, Father, I've fallen into temptation." Priest, "Take a deep breath, my child. What happened?" Young man, "First I stayed late at the library, the rain poured and I had to wait with the librarian. One thing led to another and I slipped." Priest, softly, "That's a sin, but you can atone. Say 5 Hail Marys." The young man dabbed his eyes, but continued. "Then an elderly neighbor asked for computer help. Storm clouds rolled in. I waited out the downpour, and I slipped again." The priest sighed. "Add 10 more Hail Marys and keep your heart strong." Through fresh tears, the man whispered, "Yesterday at the barber shop, I was his last customer. The skies opened up. I waited, and, Father, I slipped once more." The priest looked toward the window, saw dark clouds gathering, and stood up. "My son," he said, handing back the screen divider, "I think you'd better get out of here before it starts raining." So it's 2 in the morning, and the whole house is quiet. Suddenly, a 70-year-old man rolls over in bed and sees his wife's phone light up. Half asleep, he squints and reads the screen. Beautiful. Without thinking, he smacks his wife awake and yells, "Who the hell is texting you beautiful at 2 a.m.? Confused and still groggy, she grabs her phone, looks at it, then glares at him with pure rage. She shouts, "Put on your damn glasses, genius! It says battery full, not beautiful." A couple had been happily married for over 60 years. Throughout their long life together, they shared almost everything, except one little secret. The wife kept a small shoebox hidden high on the top shelf of their closet and always warned her husband never to open it or ask about it. Years passed, and one day the wife fell seriously ill. The doctor told them she likely wouldn't recover. As they prepared for the inevitable, the husband carefully took down the mysterious box and brought it to her bedside. With a gentle nod, she gave him permission to finally see what was inside. He opened the box slowly and found two delicate crocheted dolls resting on top of a neat stack of cash, totaling $95,000. Perplexed, he looked at her and asked, "What's all this about?" She smiled softly and explained, "When I was about to marry you, my grandmother gave me some advice for a happy marriage. She said if I ever got upset or angry with you, instead of arguing, I should keep quiet and crochet a doll." The husband's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the two dolls. Only two dolls? After all these years? She nodded. Yes, only twice. He felt a rush of joy and gratitude. Their marriage had truly been filled with love and patience. Then he looked back at the money and asked, "But where did all this money come from?" With a little laugh, she answered, "Oh, that's from selling the dolls." Three sisters were getting married within the same year, and their slightly nosy mother had just one request. "Wherever you go on your honeymoon, send me a postcard with one phrase that sums up how things are going. You know, romantically." A few days after the first wedding, a postcard arrived from Greece. It said only, "Sun-fresh orange juice." Mom blinked, ran to the fridge, grabbed the carton, and read the slogan, "Bursting with natural goodness." She turned pink, but smiled proudly. A week later, a second postcard came from Canada. It said, "Ever-cozy blankets." Suspicious but curious, she looked it up online. The tagline read, "Warm, long-lasting comfort all night." Her blush deepened, but again, satisfaction. Then came silence from the third daughter, who'd gone off to a remote island. 1 week passed. 2 weeks. 3. Nothing. Finally, after a whole month, a postcard arrived. The handwriting was wobbly. It said, "Turbojet Airlines." Her heart skipped. She raced to find the slogan in an old travel magazine. There it was, and her jaw dropped. Non-stop service, morning, noon, and night, both directions. She dropped the magazine and had to sit down. "I raised them well," she whispered, fanning herself. A slick city lawyer took a weekend trip to the countryside and decided to try his hand at duck hunting. After a lucky shot, the bird dropped into a field just beyond a barbed wire fence. As the lawyer climbed over to retrieve it, a weathered old farmer pulled up on a tractor and called out, "Hey there, what do you think you're doing?" "I shot a duck," the lawyer said confidently. "It landed over here, so I'm going to get it." The farmer shook his head. "This here's my land. That duck's mine now." The lawyer scoffed. "Listen, I'm one of the top attorneys in New York. If you don't let me take that duck, I'll sue you for every acre you got." The old man grinned. "We don't do lawsuits around here. We settle things with what we call country justice." "Country justice?" the lawyer asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yep," the farmer said. "We take turns kicking each other. I go first since it's my land, then you kick me. We go back and forth till someone gives up." The lawyer sized up the farmer, scrawny, wrinkled, and clearly pushing 80, and thought, easy win. "All right, you're on." The farmer stepped down from the tractor, walked up slowly in his muddy steel-toed boots, and without hesitation delivered a thunderous kick straight to the lawyer's groin. The attorney collapsed, gasping in pain, eyes watering, face first into a fresh pile of cow manure. After a minute, he staggered to his feet, barely standing. "All right," he wheezed. "Now it's my turn." The farmer chuckled and waved him off. Ah, never mind, I give up. You can keep the duck. A gentle elderly woman called the hospital front desk and asked sweetly, "Hi, dear, could someone please tell me how a patient is doing?" The receptionist responded warmly, "Of course, I'll need the patient's name and room number, please." With a shaky voice, the woman replied, "Margaret Ellis, room 408. "One moment," the receptionist said cheerfully. "Let me check with the nurses' station for you." After a short pause, she came back on the line. "Good news, Margaret is doing just fine. Her vitals are steady, she ate lunch, and the doctor is planning to discharge her tomorrow morning." There was a long sigh of relief on the other end. "Oh, thank heavens," the woman said. "You have no idea how much that means to me. Thank you so much." The receptionist, touched by her gratitude, asked, "Is Margaret your sister or a close friend?" The woman chuckled softly. "Actually, I am Margaret Ellis. I'm just tired of nobody telling me anything around here." It all started innocently enough during lunch. 3 hearty servings of beans. I knew better, but hey, they were too good to resist. Later that evening, I came home to find my husband grinning from ear to ear. "Got a surprise for you tonight," he announced, eyes sparkling. Curious and excited, I let him lead me by the hand, blindfold me, and guide me to my chair at the dinner table. I was bubbling with anticipation. Just as he was about to lift the blindfold, his phone rang. "Promise me you won't peek while I'm on the call," he said, slipping out of the room. I nodded, but inside, panic was setting in. Those beans? Yeah, they were making their presence known, and fast. My stomach churned like a stormy ocean, and I fought with every ounce of willpower to keep the chaos contained. But physics? Physics doesn't care about birthdays. Seizing the moment while the coast was clear, I let loose. It was loud, so loud it could have registered on the Richter scale. And the smell? Think toxic waste dump meets skunk apocalypse. Desperately, I grabbed my napkin and flapped it like a flag, hoping to clear the air, or at least pretend I was trying. Relieved by the silence, I couldn't resist unleashing a few more, each one worse than the last. Freedom never smelled so bad. Minutes later, I heard my husband's footsteps approaching. Time was up. Trying to look innocent and composed, I sat back with a smile as he returned. "Did you peek?" he asked. "Not a chance," I said, trying not to cough. He removed the blindfold, and there they were, 12 guests, faces twisted in horror, fingers pinching noses, desperately waving their hands in front of their faces. In perfect strained unison, they forced out a shaky, "Happy birthday!" A young guy named Mark got a parrot for his birthday. But this was no ordinary bird. Oh no. This parrot had the mouth of a drunken pirate on payday. It cussed. It insulted. It even made fun of Mark's haircut. Mark tried everything. Kind words, calming music, even educational YouTube videos. Nothing worked. One day, completely fed up, Mark shouted at the parrot. The parrot shouted back, worse than ever. Mark grabbed the cage and shook it. The parrot exploded with even more colorful language. Finally, Mark lost it. He opened the freezer, put the parrot in, and slammed the door shut. There was squawking, kicking, flapping, and then complete silence. After a long, still minute, Mark panicked. "Oh no, what have I done?" He flung the freezer open. Out stepped the parrot, calm as ever. It climbed onto Mark's arm, cleared its throat, and said, "Sir, I want to apologize deeply for my rude behavior. I was completely out of line, and I intend to become a much more civilized parrot moving forward." Mark blinked in shock. Before he could say a word, the parrot leaned in and whispered, "May I ask what the chicken did?" An elegant older lady walked up to the bar aboard a cruise ship, her pearls shining almost as brightly as her smile. "I'll have a scotch," she told the bartender, "with just 2 drops of water." As he poured her drink, she added, "I'm celebrating my 80th birthday today." "Well, happy birthday," the bartender said, sliding the glass over. "This one's on the house." Moments later, a woman sitting nearby raised her glass and said, "Let me buy your next one. 80 deserves 2 drinks at least." The birthday lady smiled. "Why, thank you, dear bartender. Another scotch, and again, just 2 drops of water." Not long after, a gentleman on her other side chimed in. "I'd be honored to get you a drink as well." "Well, aren't you sweet?" she said. Bartender, one more scotch, with 2 drops of water, please. As he handed over the 3rd glass, the bartender leaned in and said, "Ma'am, if you don't mind me asking, why always 2 drops of water?" The woman looked him straight in the eye and said with a wink, "Sonny, at my age, I've learned how to hold my liquor. It's holding my water. That's the real challenge." A young woman in a sharp blazer walked into a major bank in downtown Manhattan. "I need a short-term loan," she told the loan officer. "Just $5,000 for 2 weeks. I'll be flying overseas on business and don't want to travel with extra funds." The officer raised an eyebrow. "That's no problem, ma'am, but we'll need some form of collateral." Without hesitation, she handed him the keys to a sleek silver sports car parked right outside. "It's a 2024 luxury coupe," she said. "Paid in full. Title's in the glove box." They confirmed everything. The ownership, the title, even the insurance. Everything was spotless. Naturally, the bank's staff had a field day joking about it in the break room. "Can you believe she left a car worth over $100,000 just to borrow $5,000? One banker laughed. "She probably thinks interest is something you charge on Instagram." Her car was safely stored in the bank's underground parking for 2 full weeks. Exactly 14 days later, she walked back into the bank, handed over a check for $5,015.41, and smiled. "All squared?" she asked politely. "Perfectly," the loan officer said, then added, "But I do have to ask. Our research shows you're, well, extremely wealthy. You own real estate in 3 countries and you run a tech firm." She nodded. "That's correct. So why on earth did you need a $5,000 loan?" She leaned in with a grin and replied, "Simple. Where else in New York can I park a $100,000 car for 2 weeks, fully insured and guarded for just $15.41? The banker stared at her in silence. She winked. "Sometimes brains come in heels, not suits." One quiet night, Ed and Linda were lying in bed. The lights were off, the room was peaceful, and Ed was drifting off with a soft snore already building. But Linda wasn't tired. She was feeling a little nostalgic and a little romantic. She whispered, "Remember when we were dating? How you used to hold my hand every night?" Half asleep, Ed groaned softly and reached over to grab her hand. He gave it a quick squeeze, then rolled back over. A minute passed. Linda nudged him again. "And you used to kiss me, too." With a sigh, Ed leaned over, gave her a small smooch on the cheek, and tried once more to find his pillow. Another pause, then came her voice again, this time softer. "And remember how you used to nibble my neck?" Ed suddenly sat up, threw the blankets off with a grunt, and swung his legs over the bed. Startled, Linda sat up. "Wait, where are you going?" he muttered as he shuffled toward the hallway. "To get my teeth, woman. You're the one who started this trip down memory lane." 2 old friends, Harold and Gus, figured they didn't have many wild nights left in them, so they decided to go out with a bang. After a few too many whiskeys at the local saloon, they stumbled into a brothel just down the road full of high hopes and low standards. The madam took one look at them, wrinkled, wobbly, and reeking of bourbon, and whispered to her assistant, "Don't waste any of the girls on these 2. Just stick a blow-up doll in each room. They'll never know the difference." The assistant did as he was told, and the 2 old-timers were sent upstairs to enjoy their evening. Later, as they staggered down the street in the moonlight, Harold looked uneasy. "You know, Gus," he muttered, "I think mine was dead." "Dead?" Gus asked, wide-eyed. "What makes you say that? She didn't move. Didn't make a sound. I could have been making love to a plank of wood." Gus burst out laughing. "Could be worse," he said. "I think mine was possessed." "Possessed? What in the world makes you think that?" "Well," Gus replied, "I was getting into it, kissing her neck, nibbling a little. Then she let out a fart and shot right out the window. Took my dentures with her." I was driving down the highway, music blasting, windows down, just minding my own business. Then I saw the flashing lights in my mirror, pulled over, rolled the window down. The officer walked up and said, "Papers, please." I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Scissors." I win. Then I calmly drove off like it was just another round of rock, paper, scissors. That was 47 minutes ago. He's still behind me, sirens on full blast. I think he wants a rematch.